What's the best magic for every class? Starting with mage, you need to understand that there are multiple combinations which work very well with mage. Primarily though, wind and shadow are the best magics in most cases. Wind was actually heavily nerfed in this update though, which is unfortunate for wind users. It still is regarded as a major meta though, along with shadow because of its simply goated secondary stats. It can now also apply a DOT when used with ice or snow, equivalent to acid or magma DOT with 5% ticks for 10 seconds, and it's called frostbite. Shadow is also a meta mage magic because it has incredible base stats, generally considered the best in the game. Shadow mages using their aura are absolutely terrifying in terms of damage, easily hitting over 250 on their attacks and oftentimes hitting the 300 mark. Unfortunately though, in exchange for Shadow's goated stats, there is a grand total of 0 synergies. Shadow mage is especially terrifying right now because of its damage and speed affinity on Surge. If you use Paladin, it's Metal. Metal's the only magic capable of doing reasonable damage on Paladin, has incredibly high health affinity for a defense, or are able to reach over 4k HP. If you're a Paladin, sorry for the short section on your class, but as no one mains Paladin, it's not worth talking about. It's just the worst class in the game. Moving on to Conjurer, the top Conjurer magics are usually said to be Acid, Sand and Water. While Sand was nerfed this update, it still has very hard hitting damage with standard speed and decent size. Sand was known last update to be the best Conjurer because of its plain superior stats when compared to the others. However, this update made the competition between other top Conjurers more tight, allowing Water to rise to be one of the best again, with similar stats to Sand. However, it does slightly less damage, has marginally more speed, and 0.05 more AoE. The more you use your magic on Conjurer builds, the more you should lean towards Sand though, as it had a decently higher power affinity. However, on Conjurer, Sand debut affinity wasn't buffed this update, so while it would have been 1.05, it's still 1.025, and Water's risen from 0.975 to 1 damage affinity. So as Water was buffed in affinity and Sand was nerfed, or unchanged depending on how you look at it, the difference between them in damage is much smaller, and Water having some of the best stats for Conjurer with new imbue affinity changes means Conjurer damage is standardized to have the damage affinity and power affinity, allowing Water to be a very solid Conjurer magic. You know, the only thing better about Warrior stats to Water Conjurer is speed, and that's only marginal at 5%. Water imbue has the same damage and 0.1 more AoE than Warrior, making it plain superior really. Finally, Warlock. This section is probably about to be hell. I'll separate it into the best magics for each style for both mine and your ease. Let's begin with Thermo. In all honesty, the best magic for Thermo right now is the magic of switching fighting styles, but I'll give a real answer too. Thermo is exceedingly low damage and size, so that needs to be made up for on imbue. The magics that come to mind for this is Sand and Crystal, as Sand Thermo is meta. Obviously not now because of the nerfs, but however it does have high damage and size, and synergy with Thermo of course. Crystal is good for the same thing, having high damage and size, but Crystal is also really good for Warlock overall because of the combo-oriented playstyle allowing users to chain a lot of hits. And the crystallized effect would highly benefit from this, making Thermofist actually do good damage every 4th hit. Moving on to Boxing. For Boxing you'll probably want a similar thing. However, Shadow's more optimal than Sand in this case because Boxing doesn't have any synergies. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Shadow makes up for the low size and damage and complements the high speed. For Sailor style, you're gonna want either Lightning, Ice or Snow. As Snow's no longer debuffed against frozen targets, it's goated for being fast and freezing with Sailors. Lightning is also similar, except it never suffered a negative synergy, and is lighter. Ice is the heaviest option of them all, doing boosted damage to frozen targets, and having the highest damage. Of course it does have relatively low speed compared to the other two, however it's still good for its AoE and damage. If you're an Iron Leg user, good choices include Fire, Water, Acid, Crystal and Lightning. I think you can probably guess why for them all. Fire has high damage, Water has high damage, Acid has high damage, Crystal has high damage, Lightning has decent damage and high speed. For basic combat you just want Shadow because it doesn't synergize with anything and has the best stats. And that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'd be grateful if you subscribed, and I'm getting very close to 500 at the moment. Oh, and if you use Canna Fist, the best magic is Eating Glass.